My life began on February 7, 1986, at 10:13 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in Brooklyn, New York. But we have to go back way before then, of course. My parents both came to the United States when they were young. I know my mom came here when she was younger than I am today. I'm not really sure how old my father was. They both came here on their own, which is awe-inspiring to me, because I have a hard time just being a few hours away from them. My father is a doctor and my mother is a nurse. My father specialized in nephrology and hypertension and ended up working in the VA. But my mom ended up working in pediatrics. Earlier on in their careers, though, they met at the entrance to a hospital. One was leaving and one was going in, and as it's told, my father yelled, "Stop!" And as he says, she's lucky she stopped. I am the 7th and youngest of their children, and also the smallest. I have 4 older sisters and 2 older brothers. There's 3 law degrees and 3 PhDs, and this one's also an MBA, and I'm the only optometrist. This brother is a composer and wrote the music you're hearing now. My family is so important to me. We email almost daily. We try to see each other as much as possible, and we have been known to do some epic D&D campaigns and host wicked cool barbecues. Our lives are constantly changing, all of them, and evolving. And when you put them all together, they must look like quite a kaleidoscope from above. We didn't stay in Brooklyn very long after I was born. My parents had already started building their house in the Hamptons. When I was a few days old, I went to Mardi Gras in New Orleans for my father's medical conference. My father went back years later to New Orleans for another medical conference, and he came back telling us a story of how he treated 2 young doctors that he met there to dinner and mojitos. It was his first mojito. And when I heard that story, I realized I wanted to be like my dad. But yes, I lived in the Hamptons for my entire childhood, and it was fabulous as it sounds. I don't remember too much about my early childhood, but I remember being introverted. I don't remember too much about my years before school, but I do remember loving tea and loving Bewitched, because that's the show that was on when my brother and sister got home from their school. The year before kindergarten, I had a babysitter. I was too shy to talk to them much and ask for anything, so I convinced myself that they didn't have milk, and I remember eating Cocoa Krispies that my mother gave me straight out of the baggie with my tongue. I don't remember a lot from kindergarten either, except taking chocolate milk in my thermos and one day exploded all over my homework, which was a recipe my mother wrote out for my favorite breaded chicken cutlets. That was my lunchbox. In kindergarten, I knew I was smart because people told me, and I remember the book Huggles Juggles. For 1st through 4th grade, I went to a one-room schoolhouse. I've mentioned in videos before that it has shaped my life. My best friend in my grade was Rachel, and she had awesome red hair. But because there are 4 grades in one room, you basically were friends with everyone. I was able to go at my own pace, explore my creativity, but my teachers didn't exactly encourage me in all the right ways when I look back. My family has always spent a lot of time together when we were younger. We didn't all have our own room, of course, so I made my own space under a loft bed in a room that we called the big room. If I was alone, I usually had an easy time entertaining myself. I also loved television, especially Nickelodeon, Tiny Toons, and Animaniacs. I was something of a latchkey kid because my mother left for work about half an hour before my brother and sister got home from their school. My uncle was sometimes but not always there with me. Because I was alone, I only felt safe if the television was on, and I sometimes find myself feeling that way today. I also tested positive for a lot of food allergies, one of them being chocolate, which I loved. So I did eat a lot of chocolate in those half hours, which was of course foolish of me, but I was fine. My brothers and sisters were put in charge of me most of the time because my parents were at work. They made up their own means of punishment. Even if they were genuinely laughing at me or with me because they thought I was funny, I still thought that they were humiliating me. I think this is a big reason I hardly ever spoke up in school, even in optometry school. I was always just a quiet kid though. It's just my personality. Just like Rep Saunders. But my family was very large. We also had other visitors live with us every once in a while. I thought it was just part of our religion that we had to let people live with us. But my parents just took these people under their wings because they knew what it was like to be on your own. But we also had people that we dubbed honorary bots, which is really kind of strange, but still pretty cool. My brother's best friend from middle school is one of them, and somewhere along the line, we met a Filipino family that lived in the area. There is the father, the mother, the son, and the daughter, Amanda. Soon after I met them, the father passed away, and the family spent more and more time with us. The mother died a few years ago, and she was one of the first people that I was really close to who was taken from me. Between the taping of the drawing part of this video and the voiceover part of this video, Amanda has too passed away. We were really close growing up together, and it's going to be tough not having her here. So I would like to dedicate this video to her and her brother because my life would be completely different without them. So please send them good thoughts. Anyway, sometime in that time period, my oldest sister left and was gone for a couple of years. I don't really remember. But I do remember still making her Christmas presents and saving them, even though I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to give them to her. She did come back, by the way. In 5th grade, I went to the East Hampton Middle School. It was a pretty big change going from a one-room schoolhouse to a bigger school with actual regulations, but it was fun. I started taking violin lessons at school with my then and forever favorite teacher, Mr. Grindle, whom I later wrote love letters to, and which I went to the school counselor for. Middle school isn't terribly memorable, but I did finish the 8th grade with the highest grades in my class. I had my first crush on a boy when I was in the 6th grade, and he's now an amazing musician, singer, and songwriter. Around that time is when I got colored lights for my birthday, which got me thinking about color and vision. In the 7th grade, I met my friends Kathy and Haley, who are now my best friends. It was during that time that I learned that I didn't like history or English class, but I did like math, science, and French. Also, interestingly, I didn't like art class, but I did like music. In middle school, I also learned that I liked to write. Not very creatively, but I liked to write emails, long emails, to near strangers. I found that having anyone to bounce ideas off of was really important to my growth. So I emailed. I also wrote letters. I let people know how I felt about them, and I wasn't ashamed. Middle school is also when I figured out I wanted a glasses shop. I had a thing for glasses before hipsters made it cool. And then after taking a career aptitude test, I realized I wanted to be an optometrist. In high school, I had a pretty typical honors student experience, nothing too special. I started writing in a journal that I named James when I was a freshman. I went to my first of several They Might Be Giants concerts in April of 2001. My sister went to Barnard that August, and I went to my second TMBG concert, which was during the orientation of Columbia University. At that concert, I learned that they were releasing their new album called Mint Car after a concert they were having at Tower Records. I asked my brother to go and get me a signed CD. The concert, which was at 11 p.m. on September 10th, 2001, was the last event my brother went to in Manhattan as it was. When the towers fell, practically my whole family, including my parents, was in the city. When I finally talked to my brother and he said he got my CD, I knew in my heart that my family was okay. In May 2002, my father had a horrible allergy attack and almost died. He stayed in the hospital for over a week and they had to trach him twice. But while my father was in the hospital, I had my first kiss from someone who was 4 years older than me. On August 17th, 2002, my life changed forever. My first nephew, Aiden, was was born, making me Auntie Fudd. I was 16 and I loved being an aunt. Teaching someone how to do something was so rewarding and funny, and it came easily to me. In my junior year, I started dating my first serious boyfriend, Christopher, who is still one of my closer friends. I recently called him up to wish him a happy would-be 10-year anniversary. I'm proud he was my first love, even though he now questions his gender identity. I joined the dance team in junior and senior year. As my friends started dating other people and hanging out with new people and things like that, even though our friendships were still tight, I felt they could have been tighter. By senior year, we didn't even put much efforts into going into the same college or even to the same area, and I feel we really lost touch in college, which is just plain dumb. The friends you grow up with in the same area as you just get you more. Well, I went to Randolph-Macon Women's College in Lynchburg, Virginia. I didn't want to, but I'm happy I did. I don't know why I was so resistant to it, maybe the culture shock of Virginia or an all-girls school. But without Randy Mack, I may not have had the support I needed to get into optometry school, mainly from my advisors, Dr. Baer and Dr. Fab. I didn't really have it from my parents who wanted me to go to medical school. Also, I love the dance department and actually minored in dance. I'd do anything to be able to dance there again. I met some really great girls there, including one of my best friends, Carolyn. My favorite birthday celebration to this day is my 21st, when we went to professional bull riding. When I look back at college, I really do smile, especially when I think about that poor odd tree. I started painting in the summers during college to have something to hang up in my dorm room, and I also found my spirituality and got comfortable with my faith in college. My college changed to co-ed while I was a junior, but it didn't really faze me like it did most of the other people. While I was in college, my second nephew, Callan, was born. Then after graduation, my first and only niece, Kiko, was born. That same summer is when I got into optometry, because I didn't get in during the year, and I also got back in touch with my high school friends, so it was a pretty good summer for me. I moved to Philadelphia in August 2008 to attend the Pennsylvania College of Optometry. I smiled all the time because I was so grateful to be there, but then it got really hard and kind of lonely. Most of my classmates lived closer to school, but I lived in my family's apartment in Center City. I love my apartment and I love Center City, but I spent a lot of time alone, watching Seventh Heaven, at my sister's apartment when she wasn't even there. When I went home for Thanksgiving, I was watching videos on YouTube and clicked on a picture of an eye, and I realized it was a makeup tutorial. I watched more and more and I thought, I could do that. A few months later, I entered Juicy Star's summertime makeup contest, and also put up a video of my near foria. Then I was hooked. I kept at it, even though I wasn't very good at it, and things never really came out right. But I found a Lush store and I started reviewing products and really appreciated what it was like to live in a city and be able to try things out like that. I kept on struggling my way through optometry school, spending most of my time at Barnes & Noble studying, so I could also read beauty magazines when I took breaks, so I could have more ideas for more videos. I also put up optometry videos, which was so much fun. YouTubers wrote back to me when I wrote to them. People left me messages and subscribed to me, and I was so surprised. But I didn't feel as lonely. And then, as people began to understand what YouTube was, I actually had something to talk about when I met somebody new. After first year, I did a short internship at Modern Eye, an offbeat optometrist office and optical shop. That place always gave me the strength to power through school during the hard times. They were like my light at the end of the tunnel. I still wonder if I'll someday have a business like that. I started hanging out with the man who worked at the school bookstore when he came into Center City. He introduced me to his filmmaker friend who lived a few blocks from me. His name is Mike, and we started dating, even though he was 16 years my senior. We didn't have much in common, but I didn't care. He reintroduced me to Survivor, and that was good enough for me, because I love Survivor, and the season that just ended was one of the best. Mike and I dated until I left for my internships. We didn't stay in touch, but I really wish we did. My first internship, which was during my third year in optometry school, brought me to Indiana, Pennsylvania, which is my current home. That was supposed to be the movie poster for It's a Wonderful Life, because Indiana's only claim to fame is that Jimmy Stewart was born and raised here. I didn't like it here much. It was too much of a culture shock for me. While I was here, I met some great people and got comfortable in doing regular eye exams. And also, side note, I also almost died by an out-of-control helicopter. But I didn't think that this town was quite the right fit. One day, though, I was looking through my patients for the day, and I noticed that one of my patients was coming in because he was having trouble seeing after having a stroke. I checked his birthday, February 7th, 1985. My eyes grew huge. So young, exactly a year older than me. I looked out into the waiting room and melted. Strokey was cute. His name ended up being Jim Morrison. I did his eye exam and he really listened to what I had to say. I could tell he thought I was smart and he respected me. I saw how passionate he was about his recovery and how he wanted to be a chef and how he knew he could do it. He had to come back for a special test, and even though I wasn't supposed to, I asked him out. We dated a little bit before I had to leave for my next internship. We had a lot of fun, and he made me feel relaxed, but sometimes he got distant. I felt like I was being rejected, so I left Indiana thinking I would never come back. I did my next internship at the VA hospital, which I hated, but I hated it because it was hard, and it was hard because I was really learning. And I also got to be back on Long Island, and I got to stay home on the weekends, which was awesome. Then I went back to Philadelphia for my pediatrics rotation at my school, and I loved it. I love kids, and I want to jump for joy when they're interested in learning from me. It was during this rotation that my youngest nephew was born, and also when I jumped out of an airplane. I started to feel really comfortable in my skin. I was proud of who I was. I took that pride with me to Vinton, Virginia, where I worked with a great doctor named Dr. Jessup. I learned so much from him. But talk about culture shock. I learned right away the South wasn't right for me, and Dr. Jessup could tell, but he still managed to make me feel very comfortable at work. I decided to throw caution to the wind and embrace the moonshine, drinking, football-watching culture of the other residents of my efficiency inn, where I lived. But I couldn't wait to get back more. I did my next rotation in Rhode Island. I lived in a bed and breakfast while I was there. In my second week of that rotation, I took my practical boards. I convinced myself I had failed them, and I took a huge blow to my confidence. I shied away from my preceptor and stopped wanting to talk to her, and she only made it worse. When I started off, she would introduce me to her patients as Dr. Bacht, but then she slowly changed to Dr. Fatima, and then just Fatima. My anxiety was at an all-time high, and it affected my performance even more. I felt like she had given up on me, and I gave up on myself and spent most of my time crying on the couch at the bed and breakfast, watching reruns of How I Met Your Mother. I ended up passing my boards, but I failed that quarter on the last day, and I had to rearrange my life to retake the quarter. I hate Rhode Island, but I did meet a nice family there called the Moyers. I went back to Philly completely dejected, but I came to realize that I had a lot of support from who knew I was good at my job and saw that it was obviously an anxiety/personality issue. I also saw the counselor, and she praised me for being an introvert and supported me in my beliefs that introverts weren't treated very well at our school. So I got my swag back, and I finished the quarter early at midterms. I was so relieved to have some extra time to spend with my parents back in the Hamptons, back in the beach. I used that time to completely let go and forget about the things that got me down. I painted a tapestry, watched the Olympics, hung out with my nephews and niece, and went to the beach. I officially graduated optometry school on August 18th, 2012. It was a happy day that I got to spend with people I really love at my home. During this time, I had gotten back in touch with Jimmy, who admitted that he suffered from paranoia and actually thought that I was a spy. We cleared everything up, and he apologized, and we started dating. I asked my old preceptors if they knew anyone who was hiring, and that's how I met Dr. Fuchs. He offered me the job and welcomed me with open arms, and I ended up back in Indiana. Jimmy and I have since broken up, but we've remained friends. I hemmed and hawed about whether or not I would stay for about the first 6 months that I was here, and I took a long time to figure it out, but I love my job now. I never knew it was important to me, but my job really allows me to earn an honest living without much stress. I'm having fun with my job and owning my own little business, with my one employee who just happens to be my best friend here. I have fish, and I'm painting, and I've even sold a couple of my paintings, and I'm having a marvelous time. I've always wanted to be part of a community, someone who people recognize as a good doctor. I feel it already. Just walk through the Indiana Mall with me and you'll see. I'm a superstar. So that brings me to today, almost my 10,000th day, which is going to be June 24th, 2013. I might want to franchise or own a bigger business someday, or have a house, or have a family someday, but I know that right now I'm happy. I love being my 4'11", tea-drinking, art-making, skydiving, free-spirit eye doctor self. I'm going to keep on trucking and not mess with a good thing.